for those lucky enough to have them. Our gardens have been an oasis over the past months, a breath of fresh air, in more ways than the immediately obvious. They have provided an arena for physical recreation, a theatre for delight in the antics of the visiting wildlife, wonderfully oblivious to the restrictions on gathering adopted by us humans, a gallery with the budding plants of spring coming into and now fully in bloom, and a larder with the garden of the rectory presently supplying the apples from the tree which had only just sprouted leaf when COVID-19 became an item on the news and then the item in everyone's lives. Have we always appreciated our gardens as much as we do now? Perhaps not, but limitations, whether self-imposed or demanded by wider society, have focused our attention more on what we have. We now aspire less for that which is just beyond our grasp and for which we might overextend our finances to acquire, and more for making the most of what we already possess or indeed inhabit. Hence the hardware stores being classified as essential businesses at the beginning of the lockdown and remaining open when others were closed, and the queues that formed by gardening and DIY essentials. It's not only our personal outdoor spaces that have come to our rescue recently. Public parks have played their part in facilitating recreation and exercise for many throughout the recent social restrictions, providing a physical, mental, and indeed spiritual tonic to all who have trod their paths and byways. And so, in a service of morning prayer, recorded early this month at daybreak in Cockgrave Country Park, we celebrated and gave thanks for all the opportunities for refreshment that our park has offered our community over recent months. At St Margaret's Church in Althorpe last Sunday, the little church was transformed from a rather compact place of worship into a cathedral of the Vale of Belvoir, just by moving our evening prayer outside into its churchyard. With a ceiling as high as the clouds and walls as far as the horizon, our worship radiated upwards and outwards in thanks and praise for our wonderful setting in nature. My grandfather was a very keen gardener, never happier than when outdoors in his boots, overalls and cap, tending to something in a pot, digging in the soil of his native Lancashire garden, or harvesting his produce for a horticultural show or the dining table. And when he did wear a jacket, he was always to be found with a small pruning knife and bag of rooting powder in his pocket, just in case an opportunity for acquiring an interesting cutting came his way. He was also a man of great faith and empathised with passages from the Old Testament, when God is described as out for a stroll in his garden and glorying in his creation. And it is true that the more we take time to truly appreciate the outdoors, the more we become partakers in the miracle of God's creation, and the greater our capacity becomes for recognising his loving presence not only in the world around us, but also in how he tends and cares for us in our day-to-day lives. My grandfather was born towards the end of the Victorian era. He may well have come across a passage of poetry from a fellow Victorian, Rudyard Kipling, entitled The Glory of the Garden, and would have affirmed the sentiment expressed in its stanzas. Our England is a garden, and such gardens are not made by singing, "Oh, how beautiful," when sitting in the shade, while better men than we go out and start their working lives at grubbing weeds from gravel paths with broken dinner knives. There's not a pair of legs so thin, there's not a head so thick, there's not a hand so weak and white, nor yet a heart so sick, but it can find some evil job that's crying to be done, for the glory of the garden glorifieth everyone. Then seek your job with thankfulness, and work till further orders, if it's only netting strawberries or killing slugs on borders. And when your back stops aching and your hands begin to harden, you'll find yourself a partner in the glory of the garden. O Adam was a gardener, and God who made him sees that half a proper gardener's work is done upon his knees. So when your work is finished, you can wash your hands and pray for the glory of the garden, that it may not pass away, for the glory of the garden, that it may not pass away. May the blessing of God rest upon you and your whole household at this time and forevermore. Amen.